advertising, your CE credits going from 24 credits to 36. So some of the highlights of that, the commissioners met in February, and that was a hearing where everybody could be there and testify. I know, Trevor, you were there. We are there as the voice of all the membership. So we always get input from the local associations, from brokers, and then we always speak with one voice. We feel like it's really important when addressing the commissioners that we have that solid voice moving forward. And so some of the things that came out of that and are going to be included in the final adoption hearing, which hopefully will take place in June, has to do with your license number being included in a conspicuous way on all advertising. Once this passes, we're going to really work with the division on a best practices guide, because I know there's all these little nuanced questions that they're not addressing at all because they don't want to get into the weeds on. But once the dust settles, we're going to really work with them on things like, if somebody shares your page, does that have to have your license number? Does your name badge have to have your license number? So what actually is required of that? So just know down the road, we'll be creating a best practices once the final version is what it is. Another question we're getting a lot has to do with your hours going from 24 to 36. That's not final yet. We don't know when exactly you're going to be required to take 36. Just know that once it is finalized, the course instructors and course sponsors are still going to have to work on creating the classes, the class content, and getting them out and giving everybody enough time to actually take the classes. So that's another key component of that bill and what we've been seeing as far as the regulation side. The component that has to do with if you're 65 years or older and have been licensed in Nevada and in good standing for 30 years or longer, you can apply to the division for an exemption from having to take anything other than your core. Brokers will still have to take 3 hours of broker management. If you have a permit, you still have to take classes for your permit, but it's looking like it's going to be about 12 hours that you can take. So there's a lot that goes into all those regulations, and it's a lengthy process. Once a law is passed, it's not this immediate, now let's follow it. But so that's what we've been working on, a lot of that. And I know you were there at that workshop, Trevor. I saw you guys in Carson City. I was in Vegas, and we were messaging a little bit during it. But yeah, that's the update on the real estate division and what's come out of that workshop.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I had a little recording mishap, so I'm going to circle back here real quick on the introduction just to make sure everybody knows who you are. But that was Tiffany Banks, our general counsel for Nevada Realtors, and we're also here with Teresa McKee, who is the, I guess your title's the CEO, correct, of Nevada Realtors?
Correct.
And anyway, I'm sorry, I was trying to record it and then it asked me, should it go to the cloud or the computer? So that's my bad, but anyway, but I do appreciate that information, Tiffany. And I know, there's obviously uncertain times create more questions, right? So everybody is panicking. Part of what I was hoping to accomplish was, get a lot of the updates on the division stuff and I talked with Perry Fagan today. And, I think we're so lucky, by the way, that we have him, a private sector guy working in a public position is just, I can't tell you how happy I am about that, because the guy gets it. Now, it's still obviously difficult to put all the pieces of the puzzle together from the real, and herding realtors is like herding cats, I think. So, but that said, I know there's a lot of issues around the state, but what I'm trying to do is maybe educate people. And you guys have tons of knowledge, right? Stuff that I don't even know about, and I'm following all kinds of things, but you guys are following even more critical issues. And, it's about survival right now, right? I mean, everybody's in panic mode. These loan things, who knows what's going to happen with that? I've been doing videos every day on that, and I don't know where I'm going on that. I think where I'm going is where they're going to run out of money, and who knows if we're going to see any of it. But I know you guys have a few things that are really top of mind, including the stuff that Tiffany was just talking about. Maybe, I'll let you guys take it and tell me what we need to know as members. What do we need to do? How are we going to get to the next step? Where do you see this going?
sorry, that's my dog. That's of course the working at home that we're all dealing with. And I guess, Trevor, number one, we want people to know that we understand what the industry is going through. We're also working at home. We're fighting with everything we can. Our main role is getting information, like you said, getting it out to members. So I just wanted to let people know we have a web page at nevadarealtors.org that has all of the information that we've just been sending out these emails to members as fast as we can. And that includes information from NAR. A lot of articles that Tiffany and Crystal have put together are there. They're in our e-news and now on our webpage. Anything from the Nevada Real Estate Division is housed there as well. We have lots of resources from a lot of different places. And the other critical resource that we have for the members is the legal information line. Crystal Keegan mans that from her home, taking calls with her 2 kids, and Tiffany has 2 kids, and I have a kid. So we're all in this together. But please encourage the members to use the legal information line. Right now, the way we communicate, because we can't go into the office, is by sending an email to infoline@nvrealtors.org. And we can provide that to you. It's also on our website. But
we'll include it in the comments below.
Yeah,
and they're great, by the way. I talked to Crystal today, actually, and I've been in the business 30 years, so I still have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So, and they're really doing a great job.
Thank
you, Tiffany.
Yeah, they're doing great. Fantastic. It's a great resource. And I think one of the topics that gets a lot of questions, and again, Tiffany's a detail person, and especially on evictions and tenant landlord issues. She has taken the lead really across the state in joining with judges, the judges that do evictions. She's in communication with all of them, and a work group created by Chris Bishop, our president at Nevada Realtors, in talking about landlord-tenant issues, property management issues. And we like to tell the story of how the last governor's directive came up. Is that it was a Thursday afternoon, and we got a call from Career Nevada saying they're going to issue a directive on evictions. You have about 24 hours to figure out how we can make this better. So I called Tiffany and said, okay, we got to get on this right away. And we start talking and figuring out, and then we find out we only have an hour. And we find out we only have like 20 minutes to get this done. So we helped create that language that really was very, very only tenant issue, only looked at the tenant side of things and didn't look at the landlord side of things at all. So we really had to rush and get that through, and we hope we made some good impacts on it for our realtors, because we are pro-tenant as well. And that's what we can't forget. Tenants are part of our business, and we want to treat tenants properly also. But knowing the details of this directive, I think Tiffany can give a really good overview if you wanted to go through that now.
Absolutely. I think it's important. It's an important issue, and I know a lot of people are talking about it. So.
Thanks, Teresa. And so Trevor, so there was a couple of things that that we worked with the governor on, and the one thing Teresa was talking about has to do with the eviction moratorium. And so what we were seeing as a trend in all the association attorney groups that I'm in, we were seeing that tenants' rights were being looked at, these eviction moratoriums were being put in place, but what was happening was landlords, all of our mom and pop landlords, were not able to pay their mortgage. And so that was really, really, really important if we were going to create an eviction moratorium to have some sort of coverage for the landlords or the homeowner during that period of time. If they were struggling to pay their mortgage, we didn't want their property to be foreclosed upon. And so the federal government had said that the eviction moratorium is good for 120 days. Those are for all these federally backed loans. And what's kind of confusing is you think, well, B of A or Wells Fargo, that's who I have my loan with, but for the most part, those are servicers. So actually, I think it's something like 80% of loans are actually federally backed and would fall into the 120-day national guideline. But when the governor put out his directive, he was really specific that evictions can only happen on an emergency basis, really limited it to if it's dangerous or something illegal, and then the courts can then look at it and they can determine whether or not it's something that they'll hear right now and they would hear it over the phone telephonically, or if it would be pushed out. And so, like Teresa said, our president, Chris Bishop, who you're going to talk to a little bit later, he created a PAG, which is a President's Advisory Group, to work with property managers from all over the state, as well as judges. We have a judge as part of the group, really giving us what's going to happen when these stays are lifted, or when these directives are lifted. How are they going to be able to handle processing, this backload? What happens in the meantime? How do you communicate with your owner or the tenant? So we're working from all these different angles. Like Teresa said, we're definitely, look out for the interests of the tenant, but it's also so many other interests: the owner, the landlord, the property manager, the agent trying to get into a property. So there's so many different facets that we examine. And so that was in sum the eviction moratorium directive.
And so let's say on the landlord side, what, if anything, did they put any additional language in there?
Yes, so as far as the landlords go, they have 90 days and they have to work with their bank. It's not going to be automatic. The governor was very clear: call your bank, reach out to your bank, and that would be a mortgage forbearance for 90 days. Okay.
Good information. Yeah, I'm a landlord and I'm still waiting for the rent for this month. So that tells you where I am. I guess, where are we? The 16th. So we'll see. But I have that one happens to have a federally backed loan.
Yeah.
So.
And so the thing is, there hasn't been any language that talks about that the tenant is not required to pay the rent. In fact, it's been emphasized that nothing in his order talks about that. So no matter what, the tenant is going to be responsible for the rent. It's just coming up with some sort of a payment plan. His directive asks for 30 days after his directive's been lifted, for the landlord to work with the tenant on some sort of payment plan to get caught up. And there cannot be any late fees charged on that money. But if it's lifted in June 1st, you would be entitled to collect June's rent, and then the additional funds would just be like part of an addendum that they're expected to pay for those additional maybe 6 or 8 months.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and then you guys may know, I interviewed Tom Blanchard yesterday, and he's very heavy into the rental part of it in Las Vegas. And he said that he had 88%, and this was across the country for a large rental company that he works with, had paid the rent. So he said that's really not a big difference between a normal month, right? Where you might have 91% paid.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we've heard the same thing. We've heard that April, I think we just heard it this morning, Teresa, wasn't it 90% of rent was paid? But we're thinking May might be a little bit different.
More than likely, yeah. So what other issues do we have, Teresa, that are making the hit list?
The biggest one in my world, of course, is what's going on at NAR. So I'll start with a little bit of good news first, in case people haven't heard it, is that NAR is offering free telehealth to members. All you have to do is register, and you get the free telehealth service for 2 months. And then after that 2 months is over, you are able to continue that benefit for only $7 a month. It's a great, great benefit. It allows you to call and talk to a doctor where, that at the state level, we've implemented the health insurance through associations, and then it was taken away, and we still are fighting to get that back. So This is a good stopgap measure until then, especially during this time. The bigger issues, of course, at the national level are SBA and then the unemployment. So I know, Trevor, you know a lot about SBA. And
unfortunately, yes.
yes, and have gone through a couple of the application processes. But the way I like to describe it, the questions that we get are the idle loan is and this is, very basic, is for your business expenses, where the PPP is for your personal expenses, and PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program. Unfortunately, both of these application processes right now are shut down, and because they just have had so many applicants that they're out of money. There is a movement, of course, at the federal level to fund that with more money. And right now it is caught up that the Democrats want to add some more money for some hospitals and counties and things like that. And it's become a bipartisan issue. So we're hoping that they'll resolve this, but right now it would not happen any sooner than Monday. So my advice to people is to look at this, study it. There's YouTube, there's resources on the NAR site, nar.realtor/coronavirus. Learn all you can about it and how to apply for it. Because if that money comes available again, if it gets funded with some more funds and you need those funds, you have to be first in line. And you have to get in there and get your application in as soon as possible. Otherwise, you won't get anything. Right now, we don't even know that for the people who have applied, that number keeps going down and down. It was 10,000, now it's 1,000. We don't know where that's going to end up. The other source of funds that you have available is unemployment, and that's through the state of Nevada. Currently, if you're an independent contractor, they say you can get it, you're entitled to it. However, they don't have the systems set up yet to process a request from an independent contractor. I have heard that process won't be in for at least a couple more months, and one place said it would be the middle of May, but that would be unemployment for independent contractors. The easier one, of course, is unemployment for people who actually were employed. But even those, there are so many applicants right now. The department has had to hire 100 operators, phone operators, to process all of those calls. So it's, again, when that opens up, get to it, spend your time on the phone, learn how to apply, and get your applications in.
I did get, we're structured as an S Corp, so I did get an employer verification and a debit card from unemployment, which I don't know what that means. I mean, but at least they processed the application, which it said all the way through the day I got it on their website, it said ineligible. But then there's a little exception list that you can see when you apply as a either self-employed or anyone that's commission-based in our world. They are going to tell you you're not eligible, but the website will tell you that it's under review. So, whether or not I'll see any unemployment money or not, or even for that matter, even actually try to get it, it remains to be seen. But it's very murky. It's impossible to get through to anyone. If you're going to call them, start at 8 in the morning. They're 8 to 8, but you can call at 9 o'clock and they'll tell you that the queue is full for the entire day, that we can call you back. You get disconnected. So it's a real mess. So if you're trying to navigate that, you just got to be really diligent. And that's the only advice I could give you there. And then the other stuff, the PPP and the EIDL loan, I haven't seen any money for that. I applied for all of those things the moment we were eligible. And I'm doing it more to just see what the process is, help people navigate it. We've been doing, I think, daily updates on all of the loans from the SBA. From what the EIDL loan is direct, the other one is through your bank. The one side effect actually of this, and I want to give you guys a great compliment, and also to Mark Amadei's office. I had some issues with Bank of America when I was trying to apply for the PPP. They weren't allowing business banking clients, which for us was, 20 plus years. They weren't allowing people without lines of credit or an existing loan and a credit card to apply.
Yeah.
And so I made Mark's office aware of that. I talked to them a dozen times on it. They were all over it. The Treasury Department was on it. The next day it was fixed. So, people say, well, I don't know if I'm going to invest in PSF and all of these things. Listen, it works. And their office was very responsive. Obviously I know Mark, but that had nothing to do with it. This was his staff. They don't know who I am.
Right.
And they were calling and following up 2 and 3 days later to find out what had happened, if we got through, if we were able to make the application. And so I'm just very appreciative that we have a state organization that's organized and we have influence and we can get help when we need it. That's super important to us, as because realtors are not really organized when it comes to politics, right? And you guys are, though. I mean, that's where that plug-in really helps us. So I wanted to compliment you on that. And also thank Mark's office. I mean, they did a great job.
Yeah, thank you. And we do have, some direct lines with our members of Congress as well. NAR is on top of these issues and advocating on our behalf as well. And they do a great job, and they're out there lobbying for an extension or more funding for these SBA loans. It's, from top to bottom of this organization, the associations are working for the members. One other issue that we really had an influence on were the open houses and showings. Right. And there are some states, there's a lot of states actually that cannot do open houses or showings of any properties at any time. And we advocated very strongly with the Attorney General's office. Again, they reached out to us and included us in the conversation, for which we're very thankful. Again, that's a direct result of our strength through PSF in having that connection and that strong presence for all of our elected officials, that we are real estate. The realtors are real estate, and any issues they should seek our input. But we did manage to preserve the open houses, or the individual showings of properties, and through virtual means as well. There was really, when we saw the draft, there was no indication that we could do virtual showings at all. So we were able to add that in as well. I don't know if you want Tiffany to get into the open houses and showings a little bit more.
Yeah, so thank you, Teresa. So a question that we have been getting a lot is, are in-person showings still allowed in these seller occupied or vacant houses? And yes, as long as you make an appointment, these in-person showings are still allowed under those circumstances. The big thing and I know we've gotten this question a lot, why has this been so tenant focused, or why in this case, we're in-person showings, if it's tenant occupied, why did we focus so much on that? And Teresa and I talk about it all the time. A lot of times we're just trying to mitigate damages. And so in this case, we thought, if we can preserve the tenant's rights and not allow in-person showings on tenant occupied, which is far less than seller occupied or vacant, then we can still allow for in-person showings as long as they follow all the same COVID-19 risk mitigation practices. The goal is to minimize the risk of the spread of disease. We've been saying that from day one, encouraging our members, look, it's not going to be as easy maybe as it was before. We're going to all have to be creative, but as long as you're essential, as long as you can still do your business for the most part, then that was our goal, and that's been our goal, and I don't see that changing. I think we all have to be just cognizant that yes, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Some of the tenant occupied properties that are maybe in escrow, we're hearing that appraiser wants to get in, or an inspector, so they could close a deal. And if the tenant doesn't agree to it, even though this was not discussed in the directive, we're saying if a tenant doesn't agree, then you might have to extend the closing. So it might be just working with them at this point. We're going to get through this, but it's just trying to think of these new ways to do business for a while.
Yeah, that's really challenging, and you guys have done a great job. And I forgot to thank you, Teresa and Tiffany, for making us as an essential business is huge. I mean, that you could potentially make a bad situation even worse. And these other things that you're talking about, Tiffany, we'll get through those, and we just have to be patient. And there's Tom and I were talking about it yesterday about all the addendums that are floating around the state too, about COVID this, COVID that. It's like, wow, listen, let's just be reasonable. If you're a seller and the buyer can't perform for reasons beyond their control, guess what? You can't force them. Under these circumstances, you're not going to be able to force them. And the same thing goes for the showings. You've got to be reasonable. You've got to respect tenant rights and, realize we're all in this together. Obviously there's financial consequences on both sides. And, but what we don't want to have happen is the entire market collapses. And then, our recovery when we come out of this is affected by that, right? Housing, and Tom and I were talking about this yesterday, housing is going to be a big element in this, probably be a surge after we can get out and do showings and get back to business as usual. But, it's really a big concern. And we're so appreciative that we have, like I said before, a strong state and representation like you guys. You're doing a great job. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trevor. I just want to remind people of all of the resources that we have. We have the legal information line, of course. Your e-news is where we get information out to members from the state level. That comes out Mondays, or as you've seen in the past few weeks, like every single day, we have something that needed updating. We're trying to slow that down now. NAR has great resources. SBA has great resources. So anything you need, you can call your local association. You have a great association executive, Kendra Murray, who can answer your questions as well. Anything legal, call the legal information line. We try to return every call every day. So thank you for inviting us, Trevor. Are there other questions that you have that we didn't cover?
No, everybody wants to ask us what what's the market going to do? Our price is falling. In my market, obviously we're in a bubble, right? And this is Tom and I were talking about this yesterday. He's in Vegas and, different things are going on there. But the scary part for him is the strip is dark, right? So, in Tahoe, my biggest issue right now is related to jumbos, we've got a mess there. We've got a servicing issue, which is, something else that Amadei's office is working on with Treasury as well. These servicers were kind of left out of the CARES Act, and that could be a major problem for us. And it could be the next thing that stumbles our market. But you've got so much uncertainty. That's what's messing up the jumbo loans right now. And lenders like, Wells Fargo in California stopped doing jumbos. A number of the mortgage bankers and mortgage brokers I'm talking to are saying, look, no, we don't have them. We can try to do a workaround, but until those things settle out, we're just kind of on hold. But if you have any other, thoughts as to, what our membership should be doing right now that, is going to keep them safe. You may have heard, we purchased 170 pair of gloves. We have 150 masks coming. We're giving those to our members for free. And just trying to be proactive where we can. And, a lot of this is becoming video, these Zoom calls. Now I'm a, learned Zoom interviewer, I guess,
As we all are.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you, Trevor. The number one is health and safety of you and your loved ones and your clients, tenants, customers. Really do everything you can to protect yourselves during this time. Use the time to become aware of how to use Zoom. I think that Zoom and other virtual meeting platforms people have been forced into it. It's like saying, no, I don't want to go into that room yet. And somebody shoves you in the door. We've all been shoved into the door of virtual meetings. And I think these new platforms are working extremely well. So make yourself familiar with those. Up in Incline, of course, you guys have had, because you do deal a lot with luxury homes, you've done a lot with virtual showings and virtual media for your homes. And I think that's great. You're ahead of the curve there. There's a lot of places that all they used to have was pictures, and they were realizing how much more valuable it is to have, Facebook open homes and virtual showings of all different types. So take this time to educate yourself on that. Contact your spheres of influence, check up on people and really, be a part of your community. That's what will help us all come out the other side of this strong. I believe in Nevada. I believe in Nevada Realtors, and we'll get through this. We're a close community, and we've always been strong and have seen the absolute worst of the housing market over the past couple of decades. So if you were there during 2007 to 2012, we've been much darker and much deeper than we are today, and we climbed out of it. And I think we will do the same with this crisis when we come out of it.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, a broker said this week, he said he was going through all of his contacts and just sending a message, and I had gotten a message from him, and he said, so on this meeting, he said, "Banks," because I'm a B. He's like, you were the last person I texted the other night. And I said, well, it is so nice to just get that check-in. It seemed really random, but I think just getting that check-in from somebody, how are you doing? Because then they'll think about you. Actually, I'm looking to buy or sell a home, or I'm looking for this, that person did reach out to me during this tough time and checked in on me. So I don't think that that's a bad idea to do to everybody in your contact list. And then I'll just touch on one final thing that we kind of talked about at the beginning that has to do with the real estate division licensing guidance. So they had extended renewal payments for licenses due in March and April. And however, if your license renewal is due in May of 2020 and beyond, you must still renew in the month they are due. So they're not offering any additional extensions. They are, however, extending the classes that you can take out for 3 months. So you have until August 31st, 30 days of September, April, June, okay. So the end of August to do your classes. And if your license is up for renewal or due for renewal May 31st. So make sure that you're still going online or mailing in your renewal on time, and just know you can apply for an extension for your classes, and take classes right now that normally you have to do live, take them on Zoom. I heard they're just filling up, but until the directive from the real estate divisions lifted, they're allowing you to get your classes in. So take advantage of that right now also.
That's a great suggestion. I did that last week with Janice Koppel and did 3 classes in a row in Zoom. And, it actually worked really well. So, but thank you to both of you. I wish you, stay safe and stay home, and we'll get through this. And I'm really thankful to have the time with you guys and be able to get some of these nuggets from you, because this is really great information. And I think you guys are doing an outstanding job. So from me to you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're always here for you whenever you need us.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
you're doing an outstanding job also. And give Amy our love.
We will.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.